This is CampusLore Live, where NFL players are the experts on college football. I'm your host, Drew Butler, joined alongside my man, Aaron Murray. And on this episode of CampusLore Live, we're going to be joined by three-time SEC champion, two-time national champion, running back for the New England Patriots out of the University of Alabama, Damien Harris. Iron Bowl is this weekend, Aaron, so we got an awesome episode coming up. We'll talk to Damien about all that later on in the show. But let's start with our alma mater, Aaron, and what happened at the quarterback position for the University of Georgia this past weekend. JT Daniels, the transfer from Southern Cal, gets his debut. Ho-hum, he throws for 401 yards and 4 touchdowns. The last Georgia quarterback to throw for 400-plus yards since you, Aaron Murray, in 2013. What took so long for Georgia to play JT Daniels?
I don't know. I mean, Kirby's kind of played it close right now, not really letting anyone know exactly what it was. Was it continuous healing over that ACL injury that occurred last year at USC? I thought he looked really healthy. I think that's the number one thing I was looking for is how does he move around the pocket? And then I just thought he threw the ball very accurately, especially down the field. I don't think they wanted to rush him. They wanted to make sure that he was both physically and mentally ready to go. And obviously, I think he proved a lot to himself this past weekend. I thought he proved a lot to his coaching staff and to his teammates that, hey, listen, I'm ready to take this team forward this season. And then obviously, as we look to 2021, that big week one matchup versus Clemson, I think the Georgia fans are now excited about that position.
Yeah, a little bit of a catch-22 for the Georgia fan base because they already had 2 losses to Alabama and Florida, and the quarterback position was put in a spotlight in those losses. And with JT's stellar debut, it makes you think, where has he been? But like you just mentioned, Aaron, there's a difference between being cleared to play and being ready to play from a mental and physical standpoint. Seems like Georgia has their quarterback for the next year and a half or so. We will take it with a grain of salt, though. Mississippi State playing with a bit of a skeleton crew. They only traveled 63 players, but an awesome game. Let's head to the Big Ten because things are starting to get pretty interesting. Northwestern upset number 10 Wisconsin. They go to 5-0. Ohio State survives a scare. They beat Indiana, who was ranked number 9, 42-35. It seems like the Wildcats and the Buckeyes are on a collision course for the Big Ten championship game. Aaron, does Northwestern have what it takes to possibly upset Ohio State and make it into the college football playoff?
Oh, they definitely do. And you look at the remaining schedule for both these teams, and you kind of anticipate that they'll be undefeated heading into that championship game. And right now, Northwestern is winning it the old school style, just playing great defense, 11 interceptions this year. And then you look at Ohio State, and all of a sudden, Justin Fields is not much of a Superman as we thought he was heading into this past weekend's game versus Indiana. Listen, the kid's phenomenal. He's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft, top 10 pick. I love him. I think he's really darn good. But he showed a little bit of a chink in the armor with throwing 3 interceptions against the Hoosiers this past weekend. And like I said, Northwestern, they get after the quarterback, and they are going to be ball hawks on the backside. They're playing some close games, some low-scoring games. Even if your defense shows up, Ohio State is still going to get theirs. They're still going to score. I don't know if Northwestern can score that many points against a good Ohio State defense. That's going to be the question that they're going to have to answer over the next 3 weeks as they prepare for that championship game.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic across college football when you see that high-powered offense go against the stingy, turnover-laden defense like Northwestern has. What gives? What breaks? Can they slow down Ohio State? One team that's looking at their mouth from their loss against Notre Dame. They were scheduled to play Florida State in Tallahassee at noon this past Saturday. And on Saturday morning at 9 a.m., 3 hours prior to kickoff, the game got postponed. It came out that a player from Clemson had showed symptoms of COVID but had not tested positive. And then Saturday morning, they found out he tested positive. And FSU said, we don't care that they follow protocols. We don't feel comfortable playing this football game. Dabo Swinney, Clemson's head coach, after the scheduled game, said Florida State wussed out and that they used COVID as an excuse to get out of the game. Is this a bad look, or did Florida State actually wuss out?
I don't fault FSU for backing out last second, and I don't blame Clemson. They, like Dabo said, they followed all the rules that the ACC laid out at the beginning of the season. They did everything right. It's just an unfortunate situation that occurred with the late testing of positive for one of their football players. So maybe FSU did, maybe they didn't. I don't think that's the big story here. I think it's more of, like I said, Dabo just needs to be a little bit more careful with his words going forward with a very sensitive subject.
Most importantly, hope everybody is healthy at both schools and in both respects. Hey, don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's going on at Penn State. The Pac-12 is trying to make a college football playoff push, and the first edition of the college football playoff rankings come out this week. We'll be back right after this. We are back, CampusLore Live. Drew Butler and Aaron Murray here. Aaron, let's head back to the Big Ten because we talked about the good with Ohio State and Northwestern, both undefeated at this point, seemingly on a collision course in the Big Ten championship game to put one of them in the college football playoff. But on the bad side, a lot of people are talking about Michigan. How about Penn State? 0-5, the worst start in school history. And keep in mind, they were the number 7 ranked team in the AP preseason top 25 poll. First time ever in college football history that a preseason top 10 team has started the season 0-5. Aaron, is James Franklin in trouble? Seems like his seat could be getting pretty hot in Happy Valley.
It's getting a little bit toasty, but I don't think James Franklin is in any trouble of losing his job this season. Obviously, we all know it's been a unique offseason. It was a unique year. The way things get pushed back for that conference, I think he gets a little bit of a free pass because of what he's done the past 5 or 6 years there at Penn State. I think he is good to go. And you throw in the fact that there's so much heat right now on Coach Harbaugh. If Coach Harbaugh is able to keep his job at Michigan, then James Franklin should definitely keep his job. I think the only coach who really needs to kind of feel the heat a little bit is Coach Harbaugh there at Michigan. So, listen, you get a free pass this year, but if the struggles continue next year, 2021, for James Franklin, then all of a sudden I think you may be able to see a change of scenery there at Happy Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up a great point with Coach Harbaugh. It's not only the on-field stuff that's going on with Penn State football. You're hearing about some of the off-field issues from a leadership standpoint. People are bringing up James Franklin's names in a big light here. We'll see what happens in Happy Valley as this season progresses. It'd be great for the Nittany Lions to at least put one win in the W column as this season continues to progress. Let's head out to the Pac-12. You got 3 teams who are undefeated: Washington, USC, and of course Oregon. Keep in mind, Oregon and Washington are set to play December the 12th. Who would you give the nod to as probably your favorite to win the conference? Is it going to be Oregon versus USC in the Pac-12 championship game?
I like those 2 teams right now. Listen, and these teams kind of understand the fact that they have to go undefeated to give themselves an opportunity to be in the playoffs. I still think it's a long shot, even with an undefeated team, when you look at the way that college football is kind of focusing in right now in the SEC, the Big Ten, and the ACC. So it's going to be tough for those teams to make a move, but at least you got to get undefeated to give yourself an opportunity to get in. And right now, I like Oregon. I like Coach Cristobal and what he's been able to build there, the identity of that football team, a hard-nosed team. But I like USC the most. We talked about them at the beginning of their season, the fact that they got all these returning starters back. They got a quarterback in Slovis who's completing about 70% of his passes right now, and they're winning close ball games. I just love it that they're finding ways to win games, close games. I think it's going to pay off for them at the end of the season. I think it's going to pay off when they do play Oregon, most likely in the conference championship game.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating finish to the season out west. And keep in mind that Pac-12 is now allowing out-of-conference games if a Pac-12 game does get postponed. Notably, BYU and Washington just recently tried to get a game on the schedule because what that will do is help their case to get into the college football playoff. Aaron, the first set of college football playoff rankings come out this week. I think everybody can agree that number 1 will be Alabama. That would be a pretty unanimous decision at this point. The other 3 teams, though, I'd be interested to get your thoughts. Who are your top 4 in the CFP rankings?
Well, I'm with you right now. Alabama is by far the best team in the country. Their offense, to me, is the best in the country as well, with Mac Jones and Devontae Smith and Najee Harris. It's so much fun to watch. What Steve Sarkisian's been able to do with the schematics of that offense, the different formations, the personnel groups, the running, the passing, everything that goes into it. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I would love to go back and play in that offense because they're being able to put up a lot of points. They're able to do a little bit of everything and really keep the defense off balance. And then defensively, they're getting better and better every single week, so you're good to see those guys catching up. Number 2 would be Notre Dame at the moment. The way they're able to beat Clemson, that's a huge win for that program. They're playing well defensively. They got a quarterback in Ian Book who's been tremendous this year, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. Really like what he's doing on that side of the football. 3 would be Clemson. I still really like Clemson. And then you throw in the fact that, listen, they lost the game to Notre Dame without their best player in Trevor Lawrence, the guy that's going to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft next year. So I think there'll be 3, a great opportunity to beat Notre Dame in the conference championship to jump to number 2. And then 4 would be Ohio State. It didn't help the way they won the game this weekend versus Indiana. The fact that Justin Fields went out there, threw 3 interceptions, I think hurt the perception of that football team heading into this first playoff round. But it's still a great football team. I would still keep them at number 4, and they'll get their opportunity to continue to prove it, continue to possibly beat Northwestern in the conference championship game, and maybe move up in the rankings.
Victory over Indiana was a top 10 win. Indiana was undefeated. They were ranked number 9 in the nation. I don't think there's much of an argument outside of those 4 teams right now. Alabama's number 1. Notre Dame's number 2. I'd probably put Ohio State at 3, Aaron, and Clemson at 4. At least that's what I think the committee will do. And I cannot wait to find out what buzzword comes out this year in this unprecedented COVID season. Is it eye test? Is it strength of schedule? I'll be tuned in to find out what word we will be carrying throughout these college football playoff ranking shows. Hey, next up, we're going to talk to a guy who knows plenty about the college football playoff. He only won 2 national championships. That's right, going along with 3 SEC championships. Our guest this week is Damien Harris, formerly of the University of Alabama, now a running back with the New England Patriots. He joins us after the break, so don't go anywhere. You're watching CampusLore Live. Welcome back into CampusLore Live. Time to bring in our guest on this week's episode, and we are thrilled to be joined by 3-time SEC champion, 2-time national champion, now with the New England Patriots and out of the University of Alabama, Damien Harris. Damien, thanks so much for joining us. It's a great week for college football. Of course, it's an awesome week for college football in the state of Alabama, as Alabama is set to take on Auburn later on this weekend. But let's talk about how the Crimson Tide have played up to this point. They are now the unanimous number 1 ranked team in America, and Mac Jones in this offense for Alabama is on fire. Did you expect to see this type of growth from Mac Jones after seeing what we saw late last year to now him taking over the helm in 2020?
Absolutely. Mac, we always, when I was there, Mac was younger, but we always saw the talent that he had, the potential. He's incredibly smart, very talented, got a big arm, and, he just makes smart decisions with the football. I mean, it obviously helps playing with the amount of talent that he has. I mean, his weapons are out of this world, as everybody knows. But, he does a great job of managing the offense and, just taking what's there, getting the ball to his playmakers and just letting them do what they do best, which is obviously scoring points. So, they're doing a great job, and we always knew that Mac was capable of this.
Yeah, no question. I mean, his receiving core, even without Jalen Waddle, a terrible injury that he had suffered earlier this season, Alabama's offense is cranking on all cylinders. It seems like Steve Sarkisian definitely is in sync with his players and what they want them to achieve on the field. Matt can sling it. He can make all the throws, and what he's doing at Alabama is absolutely remarkable. And it seems like Mac Jones is going to have the opportunity to go up against the Florida Gators and Kyle Trask in the SEC championship game. These 2 teams are on a collision course. It should be an unbelievable matchup with a ticket to the college football playoff on the line. How do you see that matchup going for Alabama? You saw what Alabama's defense was really not able to do against Ole Miss's high-powered offense earlier this season. Of course, they did get the victory. Do you think Florida can find that same type of success against Alabama's defense?
Honestly, I don't, because everybody knows that Alabama's defense has had their struggles this year, but that was more just earlier in the year. And as of recently, they're holding offenses to fewer points. They're just playing better defensively from the front 7 to the guys in the back end. They're creating turnovers. They're getting guys off the field, and they're just giving the ball back to that high-powered offense like we talked about. So they're a great team. They've got a good offense. Their quarterback has been playing really well as well. But, there's something about Coach Saban. He always figures it out. And it might take a little bit of time, sometimes longer than what he would want, but he always finds a way to get the defense clicking on all cylinders. As good as Florida is, I don't know if they stand a chance against us.
And if Alabama were to take care of business, win the SEC championship again, and compete in the college football playoff, who do you think would threat out of those last four teams? It looks like Notre Dame might be there, Clemson once again, Ohio State if they could stay undefeated, outsiders, Oregon maybe. I mean, I don't think Texas A&M would get in. Who would be the biggest threat to Alabama in the college football playoff?
I got to go with Clemson, just because it seems like Clemson is always they're the team that has always given Alabama the most fits as of recently. I mean, you think back my senior year when we lost in the national championship, 2 years prior to that, losing to Deshaun Watson with 1 second left on the clock. So, they're a team and they're a well-coached team. Dabo Swinney's a great coach, and they've got great players. I mean, you look at Trevor Lawrence, who's, everybody's already talking about him as #1 pick. Their running back who just broke the ACC rushing record. So, I mean, it's not like they're no slouches by any means. And they know how to play. They know how to play Alabama. And they know how to keep it competitive. So I think that if it came down to it, Clemson would probably be the best matchup.
Talk to us about Najee Harris. He's such a dynamic running back. And it seems like he's going to be pretty well situated to have a successful transition into the NFL.
Najee is as good as it gets. I mean, for a guy to be that big and to just be able to move the way that he does, I mean, I don't think it's talked about enough how rare that is. And I mean, obviously everybody knows that he runs the ball well, but I think his ability to catch out of the backfield and step in and pass protect are two things that are, equally as important that are kind of overlooked. All the things he does running the ball kind of overshadow what he does, but he steps in, he does the dirty work picking up pass protections, and obviously he catches the ball well out of the backfield. So having the ability to do all those things, I think his transition to the league will be fairly easy because those are the things that make great running backs at this level.
It's the Iron Bowl. Number 22 Auburn heading to Tuscaloosa to take on number 1 ranked Alabama. Talk to us about this football game. I mean, I think it's the best rivalry in all of college sports. What makes the Iron Bowl so great?
I think that when you compare the Iron Bowl to other big-time rivalries like Michigan and Ohio State, all those types of rivalries, but they're never in state. Like, it's never a state that's just divided. In Alabama, you're one or the other. You're not, oh, well, I cheer for Alabama sometimes and also cheer for Auburn, like, depending on who they're playing. Like, no, it's one or the other. I've seen families divided. I've seen all type of crazy stuff in this rivalry. So it's just different. And like you said, I think it's the greatest rivalry, maybe in all of sports.
Absolutely. I mean, Bama's looking for some revenge. They did not win this game a year ago. Gus Malzahn was able to tack on another victory in his Iron Bowl history. Is there any way they can slow down this Alabama offense, or is it off to the races for the Crimson Tide this weekend?
I think it's off to the races. I think this week is another track meet, and I think Alabama's just going to run away with it just like every other week.
Well, we can't let you get off that easy. Give us a score here. We need a real prediction so Damien Harris can have some skin in the game as to what he thinks is going to happen during the Iron Bowl this weekend.
I'm never really good on actual score predictions, but I'll give Alabama at least an 18-point victory. We'll go with that. I don't know what the exact score is going to be, but I give them at least 18 points.
All right. Well, it's sure to be an awesome Iron Bowl, as it always is, to cap off a great Thanksgiving weekend. Damien, thanks so much for joining us on this week's Campus Lore Live. When we come back after the break, Aaron and I are going to break down the rest of the top college football games coming up this weekend, so don't go anywhere.
Sir, thank you for having me.
Welcome back into Campus Lore Live. Big thanks to Damien Harris for joining us this week. Something about those running backs, man. Well-spoken, great opinions. Justice Hill a couple weeks ago. Damien Harris this week. Always great to get awesome guests here, as we always do on Campus Lore Live. And Aaron, happy Thanksgiving, man. It's Thanksgiving week. You know what that means. Football all week long, and we have some awesome matchups that hit us right in the face on Friday. So let's talk about maybe one of the better matchups all weekend. Number 2 Notre Dame hitting the road to go to Chapel Hill, North Carolina to take on the number 25th ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. Could Notre Dame be on upset watch the day after Turkey Day?
Oh, of course they can be on upset watch. On the road, you talk about Sam Howell, Javonte Williams, the running back for UNC. I love that kid. I mean, he is a tremendous back, has everything you want for that next level. But I think Notre Dame honestly looks at this game and says, listen, this is our chance. This really is their playing game into the playoffs. Look at the rest of their schedule. I don't think anyone, the remaining 2 games after this, is going to really challenge them. And I think even if they lose to Clemson in the ACC championship game, they're still going to be in the playoffs. So they're looking at this and saying, hey, we win this game, boys, we are in the playoffs. And I love the way they're playing defensively. They've done a great job all year. Look at what they were able to do against Clemson. Played them pretty tough on that side of the football. And then Ian Book, he takes care of the football. He's tremendous, 11 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's a tremendous leader, a great asset for that football team. So I like Notre Dame. I think they're going to win this one. And then, like I said, this is their opportunity to really clinch their spot in the playoffs.
I'll take Notre Dame as well, though. I mean, UNC's defense is almost non-existent. How about in the Big 12, number 15 Iowa State heads to Austin to take on number 20 Texas. You hope Sam Ehlinger and the Longhorns can continue this positive momentum, but Matt Campbell and these Iowa State Cyclones, they're looking for a big road win in the conference.
I'm not going to go against Sam Ehlinger. What he was able to do early on this season against Oklahoma State to will that team to victory, this season means a lot to him. It hasn't, gone the way that they've planned there at Texas for him. Like I said, I just can't go against what he's able to do both with his arm and his legs. I just think he's going to go out there Friday night, a lot of eyes on this game. He's going to go out there and do his thing. I expect a big night, 4 or 5 touchdowns, and like I said, find a way to get Texas to win the ball game.
I like Iowa State here. I mean, Texas in a big game spot really has not performed up to their level of expectation or their standard all season long. They need this win. I think Iowa State needs this one as well. I'm going to roll with the Cyclones here. USC, they welcome Colorado this Saturday. Do you see any issues for Keaton Slovis and the crew, or are they still chugging along towards that Pac-12 championship game?
Well, I don't see any issues for the offense. I mean, Colorado can score some points. They're getting about 41 points per game, but they're also giving up 37 points per game. So I think USC and Slovis, they're going to have their way. They just got to figure out a way to stop Colorado. A very balanced attack, about 200 yards passing, 200 yards rushing on the season right now. So it should be a good football game against 2 undefeated teams. But like I said, I just love the way USC has been able to win games this year. They find ways to squeak it out. They find ways to play all 4 quarters. I think they find a way to win another close ball game this weekend.
Yeah, I would expect number 19 USC to find a way to win as well. The sense of urgency, like you just mentioned, Aaron. Hey, every week matters with our smaller sample size. It's always the biggest game of the year in the state of Alabama. Number 22 Auburn heading to Tuscaloosa to take on the number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Any worries for the Crimson Tide this weekend, or is it off to the races, as Damien Harris said earlier?
I think it's off to the races, but there's 2 things I'm going to watch for if Auburn is going to find a way to upset the Crimson Tide, and that's going to be Bo Nix. I mean, we all know he plays well at home, and he does not play well on the road. He's going to have to change that this weekend, take care of the football, find his talented receivers, and then can Auburn slow down Alabama's rushing attack? This is an Auburn team. You turn on the tape, it's like Swiss cheese. Teams are able to run right through them, and Najee Harris is one of the best backs in the country. So if they can't stop the run, and if Bo Nix doesn't play one of his best games, they're going to struggle. But I like Alabama in this one. They're too good offensively. You throw in the fact that their defense continues to get better and better and better throughout the season right now.
I'll roll with Alabama here. I don't think it'll be close, but who knows? It's a rivalry game. It's one of the best rivalries in all of sports, so I'm sure it'll cap off an amazing Thanksgiving weekend. A huge thanks to Damien Harris for joining us on this week's episode of Campus Lore Live. I hope everybody out there has a happy Thanksgiving. For Aaron, I'm Drew. We'll see you next week right here on Campus Lore Live.